In this video, we'll look at the choices you have when it comes to the way Lightroom handles previews, duplicates, and backups of your image files. So I'm going to go into the Import dialog window by clicking Import down here in the lower left-hand side of the Library module. And I'm going to move right over to the right side where it says File Handling. So under Render Previews, you see you have some choices here. You have minimal, embedded in sidecar, standard, and one-to-one. Well, minimal is just that. It's a minimal preview. It comes in very quickly into Lightroom. It's very low res. Lightroom will on the fly render a higher version as it needs it when you're working on that image. As far as embedded and sidecar goes, this really depends on the camera you're using. What Lightroom will do is make use of what has come in from the camera, and sometimes that's going to be very quick. It's going to be a very fast import. Other times it may take a little longer. You can always be sure with minimal that you'll get the fastest possible way of getting previews into Lightroom. Now standard, this takes a little bit of explanation, and I'm going to have to leave the import dialog window to do this. Now what does standard mean? Okay, I'm going to cancel here. And I'm going to go over to Lightroom, or if you're on a PC, this would be Edit, Catalog Settings. I'm going to go to the File Handling tab and look here under Preview Cache. This is where I determine the size of my standard preview. And by default, it's 1440 pixels. You can make a standard preview size different depending on your monitor size. So if you're working with a really huge monitor, you may want your standard preview size to be much larger. So this is going to mean that's going to take longer for that standard preview to be generated, but at least you'll then be able to see your image in full glory on a large monitor. As far as preview quality goes, you can choose between high, medium, and low. These are basically JPEG settings. And then here, because previews do take up a lot of space, you can select how often they are discarded. All right, so now let's go back over to the import dialog window and see what our other options are under file handling. Okay, the next option here is to build smart previews. Now this is only in Lightroom 5, it's new to Lightroom 5, and smart previews, you may want to build them on the import, but I would suggest probably you're going to want to do this later in the library module when you can make a selection of the images that you want to build smart previews with are there, and you don't have to automatically build smart previews of everything that comes in. The concept of a smart preview is this, that Lightroom will build basically a highly compressed DNG that will reside on your internal hard drive. And that will always be there for you to be able to develop settings. And it's a way of making your work portable. So when you're traveling, you can work on your shots anywhere. You could always work in the library module on the thumbnails, but you could never go into the develop module and work on the image unless you had the original files online. But smart previews is just a way now to be able to work on your files anywhere you go at any time. So I would not suggest building those on import. You can build those later in the library module. Don't import suspected duplicates. This is pretty straightforward. You don't want to bring in duplicates into Lightroom. If it's the same image, Lightroom will ignore it and just bring in the new files into Lightroom. Okay, so make a second copy to is not an option unless you've selected copy or move, or copy as DNG. It will not be an option if you've selected add. So let's go ahead and select copy, so this is now an option. If you select this, you can now choose a location for a backup. So your images will go to one location depending on what you set down here as your destination. And then also a second copy will be sent to this other location. It's a way of immediately making a backup. And frankly, you should always be backing up your original files. It may not be the most efficient way of doing it. You may want to do that later after they've been copied to a destination and then just manually make a backup, or whatever system you have for making backups. You should always be backing up your original files. Okay, so those are your options under file handling in the Lightroom import dialog window.